that you'd be better off ignoring completely. Every day, we're bombarded with conflicting information about our favourite foods.
1 minute we're told something's good for us, the next it's not. And we're left feeling guilty about what we're eating.
Well, we've been wading through the confusion to separate the scare stories from the truth, so you can choose your food with confidence. Hello and welcome to Food, Truth or Scare. Now this is a series that referees those endless arguments in the papers and online about how the food we eat really affects our health.
And today we'll be getting to grips with two things that we often read about in the papers: a celebrity-endorsed food fad and that regular claim that when it comes to our diet, things are a lot worse than they used to be.
But if, like us, you're fed up of reading doom-laden stories about how badly we eat and how our choices are going to put us in an early grave, you'll be delighted to hear that in today's programme, as well as settling an argument that's been raging for years, we've got a bit of good news as well.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Coming up, it's the trendiest fat on the supermarket shelves, but I've been investigating the dark side of coconut oil.
I've got friends who have done all kinds of things with coconut oil, thinking it's going to help with all kinds of problems, and actually it's probably not.
And which generation of the same family has the best diet? We'll see if today's teens really eat as badly as the headlines suggest.
I do sort of fall victim to a lot of like toast or spaghetti hoops.
Now, Chris, you know that the foods we choose to eat every day keep us nice and healthy and fit. But we hear a lot about foods with supposed superpowers. You can't believe it. They apparently transform our health almost single-handedly. And those claims are made all the more convincing when they're being made by a high-profile celebrity.
Well, there seems to be a new one every January as the post-Christmas health drive kicks in for so many wanting to get over their festive indulgence. And all it takes is for a big name to get behind a food fad and suddenly it's everywhere.
Now, one of the latest fads that you simply can't have missed is that of coconut oil. You know, so much has been written about it in recent years, you'll be forgiven for thinking it really does have superpowers. So I wanted to find out whether there's any truth in the claims that have been sending the nation cocoa nuts. And I'm afraid I've discovered a very big cocoa butt. It's the hottest food trend in years.
My daughter is into health foods and she's introduced us recently to using it a bit more in our diet.
Coconut oil has been credited with just about everything, from boosting the immune system to improving your memory.
Coconut oil, yeah, is a healthier one than a lot of them out there.
Lowering your blood pressure to preventing heart disease.
Well, I use coconut oil for cooking, although I'm not sure what the long-term benefits are, or any benefit, really. It's just something I've read about and, you know, I have been using it.
Judging by the headlines and endorsements from celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow, coconut oil is a bona fide superfood.
I was in the Caribbean, and every person I spoke to was constantly going on about how much coconuts were very good for you.
Even when it was in a cocktail?
Yes,
yeah.
Even when it was in a cocktail.
But despite those headlines extolling its virtues, there are plenty of others determined to knock the coconut off its pedestal. Now, I have to admit, there's a jar of coconut oil in my kitchen cupboard too. My husband bought it after he heard how amazing it was supposed to be. But before we could use it, we read some of those more damning headlines. As a result, it's sitting there unopened, and honestly, I don't really know what to do with it. So to find out whether my jar of coconut oil deserves a place in my kitchen cupboard or my kitchen bin, I'm meeting someone who's been using it all her life. Hi, Priya.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Dietitian Priya Chu grew up in Sri Lanka, where coconut is used a lot in cooking, and she's watched with interest as coconut oil has taken Britain by storm. Now, Priya, suddenly we seem to have coconut everything and coconut oil, you know, just being such a fad, really. How do these things build up?
It definitely seems to be the trendy thing to do to, you know, put coconut in absolutely everything that you possibly can. I've got friends who have done all kinds of things with coconut oil, so they've been swilling it around their mouths and thinking it's going to help with all kinds of problems, and actually it's probably not.
So just for the record, let's analyse exactly what coconut oil is.
The coconut oil is a solid fat that then, when you heat it up, it becomes a liquid and you can use it for cooking.
And it also comes like a cream, really, like a lard.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very similar consistency to lard.
But presumably, given all those headlines, you'd expect it's going to be better for us. Now, as a nation, we become used to seeing our favourite fats go in and out of fashion. In the 70s, we fell out of love with lard. In the 80s and 90s, as we all learned that saturated fat was bad for the heart, we swapped vegetable oil for olive oil and butter for low-fat spread. Then a few short years ago, coconut oil arrived with a bang. But is it any better than the fats that came before it? Well, Priya and I have a test for these shoppers to see which household fat they think is the most healthy. And you know, they might be in for a big surprise. What we'd like you to do is to pour into the test tube the amount of liquid that you think represents the saturated fat. The level of saturated fat is a key indicator of how healthy or indeed unhealthy a fat is. So we're asking our volunteers to fill up these tubes to show us what percentage of saturated fat they think is in not just coconut oil, but also lard, butter, and first up, olive oil. Okay, so
like
this is
15%.
Is that 15%?
That's now 30%.
30%.
There you go.
Okay, so you think 20%.
So that's 20%.
20%.
Okay. Not a bad guess, pretty good. Actually, it's 13%.
So there's less saturated fat in olive oil than our shoppers guess. But will they do any better with the butter? How much saturated fat in the butter?
I would say probably more like 25%.
Okay, so again, you're 30%, you're taking it up further.
25.
25%, okay?
5%, okay.
In fact, this butter is made up of around 49% saturated fat. So what about the lard?
It's actually 46%.
Now, see, I was surprised at
46.
that. So that's 46% saturated fat in lard, 49% in butter, and 13% in olive oil. With coconut oil's supposed health benefits, surely it's going to be even lower. And certainly that's what our shoppers thought.
5% there, maybe.
5%.
Now, why do you go for 5%?
Yeah, it's 5.
Yeah, that's 5%.
Do you think it's really healthy?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good for you?
Unsaturated fat should be less than all the others.
Less than all the others. Okay. Ready?
Here we go. Keep watching, Maria.
No. No.
92%.
92%.
So it's not so healthy.
Oh my goodness. Now, most experts agree that eating too much saturated fat is one of the causes of heart disease. And I, for one, am gobsmacked that the oil that we're all told is supposedly healthier than the rest actually has almost double the saturated fat of lard.
I think there is this overriding idea that coconut oil is really healthy and we should be using it, but when you actually look at the amount of saturated fat that's in it, it's quite showing, isn't it?
And do you think it's a psychological thing because it's the coconut and we imagine coconut's just fallen from the tree, it's got to be healthy?
I think it's actually the information that's been out there on social media and in the media, that there's been all this information, all these headlines saying coconut is really good for you, and therefore people equate that with it can't be very high in saturated fat then.
Well, one person who's definitely bought into those headlines and social media messages saying coconut oil is good for us is yoga instructor Kat Allen from Tunbridge Wells.
I first started using coconut-based products about 5 years ago when I read about all of the research about how healthy it was meant to be for you. I really like coconut oil. I like the taste and I like cooking with it, and I like the health benefits that it's meant to have.
Keen to learn more about coconut oil, Kat's agreed to meet Priya at her home.
I understand that you're really into using coconut products.
Yes, I cook everything in coconut oil for myself and my husband.
So for some people, they choose coconut products because they think they're healthier. Is that something that you've ever thought about?
I have read that it's healthier, yes.
Kat's love of coconut oil is based on widespread reports that it can increase our good cholesterol, which has been associated with a reduced risk of heart disease. But Priya says it's not that simple.
When we look at what happens when you eat coconut oil, we know that it raises the levels of your good cholesterol, which is your HDL cholesterol. So some people would say, well, that's a good thing. Yes. However, it also raises the levels of your total cholesterol, which is the one that's not so good for you.
Now, that doesn't mean Priya thinks coconut oil should be banned from Kat's kitchen altogether. As someone who grew up eating it, she knows it can taste great. But Priya says that if Kat has chosen coconut oil for health reasons, she's plumped for the wrong fat.
think coconut oil is something to use sparingly and in moderation. So if you're cooking something where you want the flavour, then yes, it gives a really lovely flavour. But if you're just doing everyday cooking and you don't want that coconut flavour and you're thinking about your heart health, then olive oil is going to be a better choice.
And of course, as I found out earlier, that's because coconut oil contains so much saturated fat.
They both contain fat, but coconut oil is 92% saturated fat and olive oil is only about 13%.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot less.
It is, isn't it?
But after years of using coconut oil in place of almost every other fat, thinking it was healthier, can Kat be convinced? Well, Priya's going to show her a simple recipe that would be a lot better for her if she used olive oil instead. But while they get cooking, I'm interested in the harm that the army of devoted coconut oil fans might be doing to themselves by using something with such a high level of saturated fats. Victoria Taylor is a senior heart health dietitian from the British Heart Foundation who thinks this is a food craze that's gone just too far. Now, Victoria, we see all the time coconut oil being marketed and being written about in headlines as a healthy oil. So what is the British Heart Foundation's take on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, the marketing is, very alluring. It makes it sound like it's going to kind of help you to live forever almost. And, coconut oil is a saturated fat, and 75% of the type of saturated fat in it is the kind that will raise your LDL cholesterol level. That's the bad cholesterol. And coupled with that, it's a fat, so it is one of the most energy-dense nutrients there is. And we know that obesity is a risk factor for heart disease, as is raised cholesterol levels.
I have read other headlines that suggest that coconut oil in terms of cholesterol is proportionally better for you than some of the other oils. Now, is there any truth in that at all?
So there is some suggestion that it might be better than other saturated fats in terms of what it does to your cholesterol levels. I would say that we're not there yet in terms of the quality of the evidence that suggestion is based on.
And other experts would say there simply isn't the evidence to substantiate other reported benefits of coconut oil, from claims it can help digestive problems to reports it can help insulin resistance in diabetics. Ultimately, the consensus is that, despite the headlines, coconut oil is a fat and not an especially good one. Is there anything good in coconut oil?
I think there are things like polyphenolic compounds, which are kind of antioxidants, and they are found in the extra virgin coconut oil, but they will also be in other oils, they will be in fruits and vegetables, a whole range of other foods can have them. So it really goes back to having this varied and balanced diet and not just focusing on a single food.
And back in Priya's kitchen, that's just the message she's been given to coconut oil devotee Kat, who otherwise eats very healthily. Priya says that Kat shouldn't be cooking every meal in coconut oil. But even without the health benefits, Kat still loves the taste. So can a pair of stir fries, one cooked in olive oil and one in coconut oil, change her mind?
Right, so coconut oil.
Yeah, nice flavour.
And then the olive oil. So a definite difference between the two.
I like them both. Probably a slight preference for the coconut oil, but the olive oil's good too.
But the main reason Kat used coconut oil is because she thought it was healthier. Now she knows it isn't, maybe she'd be tempted to switch.
In terms of taste preference, you would be fine having more olive oil in your diet.
I would, because it's a good case you've made.
Is it? I've argued it well.
This might be a result.
It was really surprising how much fat content there is in coconut oil. And I'd never appreciated that it was about 5 times more fat than olive oil, and that's a lot. So in future, perhaps I won't be using it quite as often.